I'm Ryan Nobles on Capitol Hill, and this is CNN.
Former Representative Mike Lang, do you think he could have won without the money that he got from Ferris Wilks and his...
Absolutely not. There's no way. It takes money to run a campaign. And as you can see from Mike's donor list, it's not going to get you very far.
Well, what kind of influence did Ferris Wilks have over Mike Lang?
Whenever he called, he answered. There was a lot of control.
Ferris Wilks and his people expected Mike Lang to vote the way they wanted him to vote every time? You're his chief of staff. How would that work?
A lot of the time, the reps are controlled through other arms. So, for example, Texas Right to Life. They put out these vote recommendations. Of course, they tell you, no, they're just recommendations. They're just how we feel. I'm not telling you you have to vote this way, but if you don't.
So the tentacles of this political operation are long,
yes,
and can squeeze very tightly.
Yes. We're coming up on the Assembly of Yahweh, Ferris's church.
We are not contending against flesh and blood, but against the world rulers of this present darkness.
You gotta be you. You start changing one time for people and it's over. I went to seminary after being on city council for my 4th term. It's almost like hallowed ground here. After I graduated in 2013, founded an organization, Christians in Public Service, to help train public servant leaders who are Christians how to serve God's way. Had nothing to do with government. I'm just speaking around the country, training, teaching.
From a conservative theological viewpoint.
Exactly. I didn't know anything else.
You get invited to speak at the Christian Values Summit.
Right. I became one of the speakers. I was on the circuit from 2015 through 2016. The pastor who was sponsoring, he said my brother-in-law supports it. So I didn't know who his brother-in-law was. And so it turned out his brother-in-law was Ferris Wilks. They speak, and they speak on liberty and freedom and Christianity and government and all those things. I was doing it because we were all Christians and we were all wanting America to be better. We wouldn't be the country that we are today if it had not been for the involvement of the church. We went to DC to CPAC. Ferris was always there. Very quiet man, very nice man. You would look at him and you would never think that he was a billionaire.
What made you want to break away from the Christian Values Summit?
When I began to put it all together, being theologically trained and having been in politics for so long, in Texas, I'm gonna say this because I don't know how else to say it. We know shit from sugar in Texas. They really believe that they've been given a mandate by God to take dominion over society and run all these areas. And they call it the 7 mountains or the 7 pillars. Government, religion, education, the family, business, media, and arts and entertainment. They believe that they have been given that mandate by God in Genesis 1:28, when God says, I give you dominion over the earth, to have dominion over the fish in the sea and the birds in the air.
And by dominion, you mean
take
and
control.
Establish the rules by which we live and
yes.
play and...
Yes, that's dominionism.
And you heard Ferris Wilks talk like that?
Yes, yes. They really believe that. If I had not known theology better, I would have believed it too. But that's not what God meant. That's not what God said. Dominion is not domination. He said take dominion, which means actually caretaker manager, not overtake and dominate. It's a theological error, but it's one that they operate from and one that they really, really believe.
Our families are under attack, and our place as men and leaders in the home is under attack.
Dominionism is a much broader agenda than Christian nationalism.
What is Christian nationalism?
Christian nationalism is a religious and political ideology that believes that America's founders intended for the United States to be an explicitly Christian nation, governed and guided by biblical Christian principles. That the nation has departed from those principles and that it should become a Christian nation again.
America chose God as king over a tyrant. Today, the choice is still before us.
Tim Dunn, Ferris Wilks, is it fair to say that they're Christian nationalists?
Those sermons suggest that they hold certain Christian nationalist beliefs, and they're putting their money to support Christian nationalism.
We're seeing a trend in our nation that will force us in the Christian community to be sure what our values are going forward, because I think that we will be persecuted. And so it's time that we stand up.
When you say Christian nation, I take that to mean you don't believe in separation of church and state.
Some Christian nationalists say church-state separation is a myth. Rafael Cruz.
Well, separation of church and state is not in the Constitution. It's not in the Declaration.
The pastor, father of U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, talk about separation of church and state as being a one-way wall of separation. That is, it's meant to keep the government out of religion, but not to keep religion out of government.
The Word of God tells us we should be having an influence upon government, every area of life. It is about time that we draw a line in the sand and we say, no more, we will take it, no more.
That's not church-state separation. That is Christian domination.
Coming up.
They want to destroy the public school system as we know it.
Had you ever been targeted like that in your education career?
Never. Never.
And later, do you think that their vision is to take their political agenda beyond Texas?
God isn't done with America yet.
Absolutely.